The day after I married my husband in a cold-blooded business arrangement, something strange happened. A sudden stream of floating text, like some kind of bizarre invisible audience commentary, flashed before my eyes. Woo-woo, this must be the most painful memory of the big boss's childhood. That blind old man actually brought home such a vicious stepmother. Twins, you better protect your little sister. I froze for half a second. Then with a shrug of both hands, I quit on the spot. I was done playing this role. I waited for the divorce. And when that day came, the 3 kids stood firmly behind me, clutching their little bags, staring down their father. We're going with Mom. Before I could respond, a pair of strong arms wrapped around my waist from behind. A deep, rumbling voice brushed against my ear. You're not taking their dad with you too? Welcome to History channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures. Story begins. The moment those words appeared, is the evil stepmother going to frame the twins now too? I nearly rolled my eyes into another dimension. Seriously? I, Donna Masterson, might not be the warmest person, but I still knew right from wrong. Since when did I become the villain in this story? I narrowed my eyes at the nearly identical boys in front of me, both vigorously shaking their heads and pointing at each other like it was a synchronized routine. He did it. I sighed, rubbing my temples. My voice dropped, steely. Alexander Snodgrass. Christopher Snodgrass. I'm asking one last time. Mistakes aren't scary. What's scary is being too much of a coward to own up to them. The 2 little brats stuck out their tongues, clearly not feeling the gravity of the situation. But the moment I raised my hand, they flinched. Bingo! Christopher cracked first. So what? You're gonna hit us now. When Dad gets back, you'll be in so much trouble. He looked like a cornered wolf cub, eyes red, snarling, ready to bite. I let out a long breath and grabbed his arm, trying not to let the frustration take over. Fine. I'd soften up. Just this once. Open your hand. I ordered flatly. He scowled but did it anyway. A shallow cut stretched across his palm, blood already trailing toward the floor. Must have been from the broken glass earlier. I fetched the first aid kit and crouched beside him. Don't whine. You chose to grab a pile of broken glass with your bare hand. This is what you get. And since your brother claims you broke the vase, well, guess you had it coming. At that, Christopher blinked quickly, shoving the tears back down. Once I'd treated the wound, I pushed up his sleeve, and my stomach turned. Scars. A whole patchwork of them. Deep. Faint. All over his tiny arm. Who did this? I'd only been married into this mess for a few days. I had no idea what went on behind the scenes. When Christopher didn't answer, I turned to Alexander. Who did this? He stared at the floor, lips pressed tight. Then he mumbled. The nanny. I raised an eyebrow. So Montague Snodgrass didn't give a damn, huh? And the help he hired was just as trashy. Go to bed. I'm letting you off for today. But, I added as the boys visibly deflated, you still have a punishment. They hung their heads like it was routine. From now on, every night before bed, you're drinking 1 glass of milk and doing 2 pages of math homework. Ha! Milk and homework. The twin nightmares of my childhood. Now it's your turn. I shot them a wicked grin. The boys stared at me like I'd grown 2 heads. I practically skipped back to my room, humming. Behind me, one whispered, Bro, is this normal? Alexander didn't answer. Because how could an 8-year-old possibly make sense of any of this? I just hope she's not faking it. Mommy, can I come in? Whoosh. The comment section flared up again. Woo-woo, our sweet baby's here. Step aside. Evil stepmother. I muted the damn commentary and crouched down at the door to meet Elizabeth Snodgrass's gaze. What is it, sweetheart? My voice went up 2 whole octaves. I wanted to slap myself. Damn it. How could anyone resist this soft little dumpling? Her eyes were swollen. She'd definitely been crying. Mommy, she whimpered. I broke the vase. Please don't be mad at my brothers. I placed a hand on her head. Of course I knew. The floating comments had already ratted her out. But I had a role to play. I put on my best aloof and elegant poker face and simply nodded. That was a mistake. The little girl's face crumpled. She cried harder. Tears rolled like pearls. Relentless. I panicked, wiped her cheeks, whispered it wasn't her fault, that I wasn't mad, and finally she calmed down. That night, I held her gently, humming off-key lullabies while patting her back. Sleep, baby, sleep. Somehow, she'd wormed her way into my room. And my bed. Mommy, I'm scared. I'm not soft. I'm the evil stepmother. I don't enjoy the sweet, warm feeling of a little girl curled up in my arms. I'm just being a responsible adult. That's all. When she finally fell asleep, I carefully lifted the sleeve of her pajamas. What the? More scars. Tiny. Jagged. All over. On her too? Who the hell lays a hand on a little girl like this? She stirred in her sleep, still clutching my arm, mumbling nonsense under her breath. But I couldn't sleep. The kids were all skin and bones already. And now this? This wasn't maternal instinct. It was basic human decency. The next morning, I had the nanny dragged to me. She stood there. Aunt Ruby, jiggling with every step. Gold bracelet glinting on her wrist. Looked like she ate better than the actual heirs of this mansion. Don't be nervous, Aunt Ruby, I said, smiling. I really just wanted to thank you. You see, being a stepmother's not easy. But you raised these kids so well. Really made my job easier. She straightened with pride. Oh, ma'am, I cut her off with a wave. Why don't you take a look at your gift? The living room screen flickered on. Footage rolled. Her face twisted into something monstrous as she whipped the children with a cane, always targeting where clothes could cover. Skipping meals. 4 growing kids. No wonder they looked like scarecrows. And yet the boys, despite barely having enough for themselves, saved the best bites for their sister. What about Aunt Ruby? Gorging. Every day something new. No wonder she was shaped like a beach ball. I'd watched all the footage before. I'd even edited the clips, choosing the greatest hits. Her whole body started to shake. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Then, thud. She dropped to her knees. Ma'am, please. I beg you. I have a family to feed. An old mother, young kids. Please don't ruin me. She crawled closer, clutching my leg. I kicked her off, disgusted. The guards pinned her to the floor, but she writhed, still fighting. You've got kids and you do this to other people's children? Child abuse. Theft. Do the math. How many years you think you'll serve? She sobbed, knocking her head against the floor until it bled. I watched in silence. Because some people only learn fear when death is staring them down. Only then do they find their conscience. Just as I was wrapping up with Aunt Ruby, I sensed a presence at the door. I pulled it open, and there they were. All 3 of them, tangled in a heap on the floor like a pile of startled kittens. You saw everything? No one replied. Behind me, Aunt Ruby's screeches still echoed, muffled now by the door I shut behind me. As the oldest, Alexander Snodgrass spoke first. His expression was serious, lashes trembling, eyes glinting with unshed tears. Why are you helping us? The comment section exploded again. Don't trust her, baby. Evil stepmothers don't change overnight. Okay, but she does give off protective mom vibes now? The second opinion vanished quickly, drowned out by the chorus of distrust. I arched an eyebrow and sneered. Don't flatter yourself. You think I did it for you? I hit her because she stole my jewelry. Expensive stuff. The kind you 3 couldn't afford if you sold yourselves. With each word, the boys' faces paled a shade. Only little Elizabeth Snodgrass looked at me with those wide blinking eyes, innocent and confused. And just like that, every harsh word I had queued up melted in my mouth. Too cute. Damn it. My inner auntie almost had a nosebleed. I scooped her up in one swift motion. So light. All that baby fat? It was just in her cheeks. I glanced over at the boys again. Both were painfully scrawny, even short for their age. "Aunt Ruby, you miserable cow. Come on," I said. "Let's eat." At the table, the boys devoured their food like they'd been starved for days. I felt a wave of pity and disgust. Sure, the comment section had already predicted that one day, when they grew up, Aunt Ruby would be the first to pay. But I couldn't wait. She didn't deserve even one more year of comfort. I believed in karma. And hers was long overdue. "Eat your veggies," I muttered, placing a helping on each of their plates. "You finished all the meat. What am I supposed to eat now?" "Wait, you're saying my Elizabeth did this to him?" The moment I saw the swollen, unrecognizable face of the boy bawling on the floor, I blinked. Twice. When the kindergarten teacher called, I thought it must be a mistake. My sweet little Elizabeth? Getting in a fight? Surely, someone had bullied her. But then I walked in to see a human-sized dumpling crying, while Elizabeth crouched in the corner, silently wiping away tears, like a fuzzy mushroom left out in the rain. The moment she saw me, she ran into my arms. "Mommy." He said I'm. She choked, unable to finish. I rubbed her back gently. "It's okay. I'm here. Take your time." He called me an orphan. And just like that, the tears came fast and hard, soaking my shoulder. I turned to the teacher. "Miss Smith, care to explain?" The other kid's mom was red-faced and seething. I ignored her. "Well, technically, Elizabeth did hit him first. We'll cover the medical fees." "That enough for you?" The mother pointed an angry finger at me. "Do you think we need your money? I want your daughter to apologize." My gaze sharpened. My voice dropped. "You want my daughter to apologize? To you? Are you sure you want your son to end up an actual orphan?" She trembled with rage. "My husband's a school board member. You really want to risk your daughter getting expelled?" I walked toward the door with Elizabeth still sobbing in my arms. "Clearly, you've never heard of our Snodgrass family." She froze, realization dawning on her face. In the entire city, there was only one Snodgrass family powerful enough to make people shut up. Later that day, I was called to the hospital. "Nothing serious," the doctor reassured me. "He's just severely exhausted. The child needs more rest." I stood there, nodding like an obedient student. Alexander Snodgrass was awake, watching quietly from the bed as I got scolded. Once the medical staff left, I sat beside him. "I'm sorry," he murmured, eyes cast down. I picked up an apple and began to peel it with a fruit knife. "No need to apologize." I handed him the sliced fruit. "Your teacher said you fainted. We were all worried." Alexander, though just a kid, always carried himself like an adult. As the eldest, he bore the invisible weight of caring for his siblings. He stayed up late every night, studying beyond his grade level, trying to be strong, trying not to be a burden. And it finally knocked him down. I tucked the blanket around him gently. "You're their big brother, but you're my child too. Rest now. That's an order." He stared at the apple in his hand. It had already started to brown, but he hadn't taken a bite. It was the first time anyone had ever peeled an apple for him. That afternoon, I stood fuming outside the school gates. Christopher Snodgrass had a black eye, a bruised jaw, and a bloody nose. This boy. Always the one causing headaches. "Do you think you're some kind of superhero? Jumping into fights." He and Alexander were twins, but completely different breeds. Alexander was calm and disciplined. Christopher was a menace in sneakers. But he was trying to film under that girl's skirt. And you should have told an adult or gone to the police. Not thrown punches. Christopher deflated like a popped balloon. Even his little cowlick drooped. I sighed, dabbing antiseptic on his cheek. "First of all, you did do the right thing. You helped catch a creep and protected someone. I'm proud of you. But you can't forget. You matter too. What if he had a weapon? What if something happened to you? Your brother and sister? They're waiting for you to come home. My hand ruffled his hair softly. Don't forget. You have people waiting for you. At this point, I might as well have become the full-time nanny of 3 little gremlins. If one wasn't throwing a tantrum, another was clinging to my leg crying like the world was ending. I was basically a plow ox in the field, diligently, stubbornly raising someone else's kids. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake off the evil stepmother label written into my fate. Finally, one blessed morning, I managed to shove all 3 kids off to school. I was just about to dive headfirst into the glorious battlefield of retail therapy, when a sack was thrown over my head. Stay still. Call Montague Snodgrass. A sharp knife pressed against my body, sliding up and down in warning. Ah! So we've reached the part of the story where the evil stepmother gets kidnapped. How poetic. I rolled my eyes. Of course this had to happen the one time I left the house to do something for myself. The comment feed was blowing up. Serves her right. That witch had this coming. Justice for the kids. Apparently, the ones meant to be kidnapped were the 3 brats. But I'd assigned bodyguards to tail them 24/7, especially Elizabeth Snodgrass, who had the most security. So the kidnappers, out of desperation, grabbed the next closest person, me. I was tied up in a warehouse while they repeatedly tried to call Montague. No answer. The leader's face darkened. I pinched the flab at my waist hard enough to force a few tears out. Listen, sir, he's not going to pick up. I told you, he doesn't care. We're a business marriage. He flew overseas the day after our wedding. Didn't even stick around for appearances. Left me with 3 kids. Being a stepmother sucks, man. Honestly, dying would be easier. Then I lunged dramatically toward a metal beam, pretending I was about to off myself. The kidnappers panicked and rushed to stop me, murmuring nervously in the corner. The knife disappeared. Good. That was enough to stall for time. I picked the kids up from school myself every day. The second I didn't show, someone at home would notice I was missing. Right on cue, just as one of the kidnappers was suggesting a plan B, a series of high-pitched screams rang out. Seconds later, all of them were on the floor. In the doorway stood a man in a trench coat, cold aura seeping from his every pore, face like thunder. Montague Snodgrass. Alexander and Christopher burst in behind him, racing to untie me. Are you okay? Christopher asked stiffly, eyes twitching with emotion he didn't know how to handle. I'm sorry we're late, Montague said quietly as he stepped closer and swept me up into his arms. Wait, hold on, I wanted to protest, but my limbs were still numb from the ropes. I couldn't fight back. Then his gaze met mine. Firm, unreadable. I gave the boys a look, hoping they'd help me out. They stared at the ceiling like it was fascinating. Traitors. When we got home, little Elizabeth ran straight into my arms, sobbing. Mommy, I was so scared. She didn't even glance at her dad. Once she'd finished crying, she blinked at him in surprise. Ha! You're back. Montague gave me a complicated look. We need to talk. It was the first time we'd ever been alone together. He'd left on a flight the night of our wedding, leaving me to a cold, empty house. Thank you, he said. You've taken good care of them. Say it with actions, not words, I thought. Anyone can toss out a thank you. I didn't bother pretending anymore. Let's get a divorce. He looked stunned. Really stunned. It took him a full 10 seconds to process. You've had a long day, he said finally. Get some rest. I shook my head. I'm not tired, Montague. I'm clear-headed. This was always a business deal. I never asked you to be a husband. But you're not even trying to be a father. You're only suddenly accepting me now because I proved I'm a good babysitter. But I don't want a marriage like this. So let's divorce. Enough, he snapped, rubbing his temples. I'm exhausted. Let's take a break and talk later. I knew this wasn't going to be quick. So I walked out. That night, I heard someone trying my door. Too bad for them. I'd locked it. Nice try, buddy. Go sleep somewhere else. After all these days of watching the comment stream, I already knew what kind of character I was. The evil stepmother in a CEO redemption arc. Except these 3 kids weren't even his. They were his late brother's. Classic soap opera setup. Dead brother, living brother raises his kids. Sweet kind-hearted woman swoops in after me and lovingly mothers the kids. The contrast makes her shine. Eventually, Montague falls in love with her, the children adore her, and they become one perfect family. I was just the first sacrificial lamb in their journey to happiness. Under my cruel reign, the twins would grow sullen and cold, and Elizabeth would sink into depression. I used to doubt it. But too many things had come true. One after another. Even my kidnapping had been predicted. That's why I asked for a divorce. I needed to leave before things got worse. The next morning, I barely stepped out of my room before the kids dragged me into theirs. On the screen, rows of numbers. Astronomical ones. "You made this?" I asked. The twins nodded. Obviously. I nearly choked. When I was 8, I was still eating glue. These 2 were out here trading stocks. Main character kids really are built different. "It's all for you," Christopher mumbled, blushing. "All of it?" I asked, one eyebrow raised. I was the evil stepmother. Who gives their money to someone like me? They both nodded solemnly. "We heard you want to divorce Dad. Can you take us with you?" My jaw dropped so fast it almost dislocated. Alexander rushed to fill the silence. "We won't spend your money. We can keep earning. We'll take care of our sister. You won't need to worry. Please." Their huge watery eyes stared up at me like 2 abandoned puppies begging to be adopted. And honestly, why not? They're basically talking pets at this point. The comment feed lit up again. "And oh, don't go with her. She's evil." "Shut up. She's literally better than anyone else. Maybe you just need a hug." Somewhere in the distance, fate turned a new page. And just like that, the story began to change. For the sake of the 3 little ones, I shelved the idea of divorce, for now. Besides, the sweet White Lotus heroine wasn't supposed to show up for a while. I figured I still had time to grab the kids and the cash before making a clean getaway. But ever since I brought up the divorce, Montague Snodgrass had vanished like vapor, nowhere to be found. I was lounging with a face mask on, enjoying my moment of peace, when the doorbell rang. Standing on the porch was a pretty young girl. She had sharp eyes and an air of bold, youthful confidence. "Ma'am, I'm Liliana Whitelock. I'm here to retrieve some documents for the CEO." Boom. There it was. The heroine has entered the scene. I nearly peeled my face mask off in panic. What the hell? I thought I still had time. But I forced myself to stay calm. "Come in." Liliana was polite and professional. "All business. Montague Snodgrass's office is upstairs. Second door on the left." I pointed the way with a steady hand, though my fingers trembled slightly. Watching her climb the stairs, I silently moved my escape plan to top priority. Montague had always kept that room locked. Even I had only been inside once. Yet now, Liliana was granted access just like that. Trust, apparently, was not in short supply. The comments were quick to point out how much we resembled each other. I didn't see it. If anything, we both had a small red mole at the corner of our eyes. That was it. Montague finally returned home that evening. Over dinner, I didn't waste time. "The girl who came today. Who is she?" "Assistant," he said flatly. Not sure if he was being concise or just didn't want to talk to me. And just like that, the table fell into silence. That night, I turned toward the guest room, but he reached out and yanked me back. With his strength, I didn't stand a chance. "You don't like her, do you?" I kept my eyes low, saying nothing. He took that as an answer. "I'll reassign her tomorrow," he murmured, then leaned in to kiss me. I panicked and slapped him hard across the face. He froze in stunned silence. I shoved him away and bolted from the room, too afraid to look back. Behind me, I heard a low, surprised laugh. Great. I think I broke him. After that night, Liliana was abruptly sent overseas for training at the branch office. That slap seemed to shatter whatever invisible wall stood between us. Montague started coming home more. A lot more. He clung to me constantly. So did the kids. Some mornings, I'd fall asleep holding Elizabeth, only to wake up in a bed with 5 people. But none of that could stop me from planning my exit. I refused to die like the comments section always predicted. I spent my days liquidating everything. Jewelry, handbags, designer clothes. I sold a few of our smaller apartments, careful not to raise suspicion. Only one was left to sign off. I arranged to meet the buyer at the property. But when I opened the door, Montague Snodgrass. I flinched, heart dropping, and turned to run. He caught me. "Why are you leaving? Why divorce?" I yanked my hand free, but didn't answer. What could I say? Because I can see your narrative arc and I'm doomed to die at the hands of you and the heroine? He'd ship me off to a psych ward. It was easier to blame him. But the truth was, aside from not loving me, he hadn't really done anything wrong. He gave me everything I wanted, 3 kids included, and I didn't even go through labor. "Please," he said, his voice almost pleading. "Give me a chance." Damn it. I felt my resolve wobble. This marriage had been my idea. Back in school, I'd admired him for years. Montague Snodgrass had always been in my orbit, winning awards, receiving confessions, making headlines. When I learned he was considering a marriage alliance, I practically threw myself into the running. But the comments had doused that fantasy in cold water over and over again. And now, here he was. Real. In front of me. How could I not waver? "Let's try again." The words escaped before I could stop them. Idiot. No wonder I'm fated to die. Love-brained fool. Montague looked like a man granted divine pardon. He pulled me into his arms. "This time, trust me." From that day on, everything changed. He started turning down business trips, spending time at home. He cooked breakfast, badly, but it was edible. "How is it?" he asked, eyes hopeful. I almost laughed. This was the same cold CEO I'd married? The contrast was jarring. He even came with me to Elizabeth's kindergarten for Parent-Child Day. At first he fumbled. Then he started winning best dad points left and right. Other moms started asking me for tips. How had I trained my husband into this? One night, I stayed out a little late with some girlfriends. When I got home, the lights were off. I assumed everyone was asleep, until I flicked them on and got pelted with confetti. Alexander and Christopher had poppers in hand. Elizabeth ran up and grabbed my hand, pulling me to the center of the room. There stood Montague, waiting. "Donna, will you marry me again? I know I've made you feel unsure. But this time, I want to be the husband you deserve." He dropped to one knee, ring in hand, eyes full of sincerity. The comment feed, usually a cacophony, had gone completely silent. All I could see was Montague, kneeling before me. Then, a voice echoed in my mind. "Congratulations, host. Your wish has been fulfilled." I blinked. The comment feed you've been seeing was a system error. We assumed Liliana's awakening altered the story. But her data was stable. It was you, your repeated tragic deaths, that exposed the glitch. As compensation, the system has given you full control of your life. From now on, the story belongs to you. Turns out Montague had always been my husband. Liliana? Just a side character. But in countless past timelines, our fates had been rewritten. While I stood there, stunned, Montague gently slipped the ring on my finger and leaned in to kiss me. "Welcome home, Mrs. Snodgrass." Ever since I agreed not to divorce him, Montague Snodgrass had grown increasingly shameless. Sometimes, even with the kids still around, he couldn't keep his hands to himself. "Donna," he murmured one night, lips brushing my ear. "The boys are upset. They say it's not fair. There's only one little sister, and they can't split her evenly. As parents, shouldn't we keep things balanced? Maybe. It's time for a new addition to the family." My cheeks turned red. I opened my mouth to argue, only for his kiss to steal the words away. It was deep, desperate, like a man who hadn't eaten in years, and I was the only thing on the menu. My limbs turned to jelly as I melted beneath him, powerless to stop him from doing whatever he pleased. Extra. Liliana Whitelock's POV. I studied hard for over a decade just to land a job after graduation. And then what? I find out I'm just a side character in some domineering CEO romance plot. And the CEO in question? My actual boss. Montague Snodgrass. Lucky me. In this economy, quitting isn't an option. So I've been tiptoeing around the office, doing everything I can to stay off his radar. Because I know the second I catch his attention, the female lead will burst onto the scene like a storm. And wouldn't you know it? Ben, our secretary, gets food poisoning and I'm the one sent to his house to retrieve a document. I rang the doorbell like I was going to the gallows. The door opened. A stunning woman stood there, mid-face mask. Elegant. Composed. Radiant. If I were a sunflower at dawn, she was a blooming rose at dusk. Rich, regal, untouchable. How the hell was I supposed to compete with that? Because we both had a mole near our eyes? Please. The very next day, Ben told me I was being transferred to a branch office overseas. I clutched his hand, tears brimming. Thank you for believing in me. I promise I'll. Before I could finish, I was on a plane. All expenses paid. Sun. Beach. Freedom. Escaping the main leads? Bliss. Screw being a side character. Who needs romance when you've got a paycheck? Extra. Montague Snodgrass's POV. Everyone used to talk about a pretty underclassman in her freshman year. I didn't care. Until one day, the school held a rare performance. She starred in Letter from an Unknown Woman. She looked out into the audience and recited the line. I spent my entire life loving you, and never once did I tire. For a moment, our eyes met. It felt like she was saying those words to me. That's when I learned her name. Donna Masterson. It sounded perfect beside mine. Like it belonged on a marriage certificate. Since marrying Donna, I've had strange dreams. In them, the kids despise her. Loathe her, even. She dies at the hands of kidnappers, and I feel nothing. As if there was never love between us. Worse, I bring back an assistant from the office to raise the children. I even marry her. Absurd. When I wake, I keep a quiet eye on Donna. But she's nothing like the woman in those dreams. She loves the kids. Elizabeth clings to her like glue. The twins don't say it, but their eyes give them away. Of course the dreams are wrong. She's my wife. And I love her. No one will take her from me. Extra. Alexander Snodgrass's POV. Uncle finally found a wife. Oops. I mean, Dad. He's Dad now. That beautiful woman is my mom. Aunt Ruby used to say, stepmothers are worse than me. You're the eldest. You should suffer more. So I never rested. If I slowed down, I was afraid the stick would hit my siblings. Then she came. And she was so different. I didn't understand her. When I fainted, I opened my eyes to find her by my side. I was terrified she'd scold me. That I'd failed as the eldest. But instead, she peeled an apple for me. She said, you're the big brother, but you're also my child. After she left, tears fell down my cheeks. Funny. I never cried when I was beaten. Never cried when I went hungry. But now, I couldn't stop. Extra. Christopher Snodgrass's POV. I don't have parents. Uncle adopted us, but he was always busy. To survive Aunt Ruby, I had to fight. If I didn't fight, I wouldn't be here. Then she came. Strange woman. We should have been a burden to her, but she never looked at us that way. She cleaned my wounds and called me a muscle-brained idiot. But her eyes were red. You can't forget. We're still waiting for you to come home. Okay, Mom. I didn't say it out loud, but I whispered it in my heart. Because if I admitted it too soon, I'd lose my little tyrant pride. Extra. Elizabeth Snodgrass's POV. They said I was cursed. A bringer of death. I lost both my parents at birth. My brothers shielded me, got beaten for me. I thought, maybe I shouldn't have been born at all. My whole life was suffering. But she told me, you were born with love. Your parents loved you until their last breath. Your brothers have given you everything they could. And so will I. I didn't know I could be loved. That I could fall asleep each night wrapped in mommy's soft scent. That I could have a home. I once found a photo hidden on Daddy's shelf. It was her graduation picture. And standing just behind her, smiling, was Daddy. Mom, Dad, brothers. It's good to be alive. Good to be home. The end. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.